Hi everyone, welcome to my review of Danny Boyle's Slumdog Millionaire from 2008. So yes, finally back once again here, reviewing a film. It's been a while, of course, and here it is, Slumdog Millionaire, another Danny Boyle picture to review here. Here it is on Blu-ray. I got this as one of my Christmas presents, actually, and I watched this the other day, rewatched it, of course, and yes, it was great to finally own this on Blu-ray, and yes, I look forward to talking about this film, and of course, spoilers alert, if you haven't seen this film, definitely watch this first and then come back to this review. But yes, as I say, been away, for a few days. It's actually a week now, roughly, already. And this is very close to New Year's Eve, filming this review. Of course, I've been away for Christmas and stuff, so I haven't been able to upload, over this kind of time. But this is hopefully going to be uploaded New Year's Eve. I guess I'll try and find the time to actually upload this entire review and stuff, but if I don't, if it's New Year's Day, maybe it won't be. If it's not New Year's Eve, it'll probably be the 2nd. If that is the case, Happy New Year, of course. Let's hope this is going to be another great year for everyone. And yes, if not, of course, if I do upload this New Year's Eve, still, regardless, Happy New Year, of course, and good tidings, and hope you're all well and having a great time, of course. And how was your Christmas is, this kind of thing. I hope you had a great time, and yes, it'd be great to see what this next year brings us, indeed. And as always, this film, I was really looking forward to rewatching it. It being a film that I've seen a couple of times. I can't say I've seen as much as Trainspotting or 28 Days Later, etc. But yes, I have seen this a couple of times. I believe this is probably my third or fourth watch of this film, and yes, of course, it's a great film to watch around Christmas, more than maybe some of the other Danny Boyle films. Of course, they are more dark and stuff. But I think this is, as it does say, on the front and stuff, it is a very feel-good film. Although it is very, very dark, of course, and there's a couple of scenes here actually that I would say, extremely graphic and very disturbing. So just be warned of that if you haven't seen the film. There's certain scenes here and there that maybe too much, possibly for some. But this film, when I first saw this, it was literally maybe 2009. I saw this a year after it came out, and of course, it did win Best Picture, for that year, for 2008. So very interesting there. I think The Dark Knight was the best film, of 2008. If you want my kind of thoughts on that, but regardless, this is certainly for me a worthy winner. Actually, yes, I do love this film. I think it's just when I first saw it, I was blown away. Really, this film just remarkable, and just one of Danny Boyle's best films for me. I think this is just an absolute masterpiece. I'll get right into that. I think this is just a stunning film. It really is. It's certain I can see why it would be one of the films, kind of that picked up these awards. Not that we really go into that too much on this channel. It can be a nice thing. If it's sincere and an award and stuff. But what we usually is just discussions. It's how you feel about a film. Everyone feels differently about different films, and it's just, I guess, the awards are there, to give recognition, but it doesn't mean that this is better than that. It's just another kind of take on a film. What maybe is considered the best by some, of course, isn't by others. But yes, I think this film is certainly one that, if you're going for that, I think it's definitely worthy. Of winning these awards. Best Director. I'm glad at least that Danny Boyle won an Oscar for Best Director. I think this is, he is one of the best, for me, certainly modern directors, and British directors as well. This being another British film, although of course it is, as we know, kind of Bollywood, kind of esque film, and it does have different scenes. It doesn't really feel, from what I've seen anyway, like a Bollywood film throughout or anything. It's not that. It's kind of, but it does tribute Bollywood at times here and there, especially of course the famous kind of end credit scene. The dance, of course. Another Oscar it won actually, yes, Best Song, J Ho, and yes, that's a kind of, that there is kind of a nice little tribute there, some people don't take to that last scene, but you know, I really enjoy it. No, it doesn't really fit to the actual film, but it is after the film, so there you go. It's not like the ending shots lead into it kind of thing, you know, the dance off kind of thing. But yeah, it's great. It's great little tributes there, you know, in certain parts of the film. But mainly this is just a very simple, you know, but you know, complex at the same time. Rags to riches story. You know, it's kind of it's a film that it tells this, you know, kind of the tale of mainly these three characters. You know, but it's kind of it's a twist. Of course, the main way in which the story is told is kind of flashbacks, you know, recounting, of course, Jamal Malik is basically this character, 18-year-old, of course, you know, who goes on the Indian version of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, and basically very close to the final question, which, yeah, I believe is 20 million rupees, you know, he's about to earn. Of course, right before that question, you know, he's accused of cheating, and this is, you know, he's being held kind of, you know, he's being tortured actually, and as we know, he's being investigated, you know, for cheating, and of course, yes, basically that's how he kind of he tells you know, these different characters, you know, how he came to know these questions, how he came to kind of you know, it's basically, yes, telling how he came to these questions through different points of his life, and just, you know, you could say it's by chance, you could say it's by this, and it does obviously give you these different options actually, you know, for how does he know this, how is he getting this far, and how has he won all these questions. It's got different, you know, A, B, C, and D, and you know, it's very interesting there. It gives you something to think about there. You know, kind of that goes throughout the film. You know, basically it tells his story with him and his brother Salim. You know, and also Latika, who's basically the love interest as well, you know, in the film. And these three main characters, the ones that kind of we follow throughout different stages of their lives. You know, Mumbai, of course, the slums. This is where Jamal comes from, and basically it shows him, you know, when he's younger, kind of middle, you know, in his teens, and then of course when he's 18, and this kind of course, different actors, you know, playing this, and it's telling this tale, rags to riches, very dark film at times, but then it's got, you know, really upbeat moments as well, and of course it's very feel good at times, you know, there's no denying that, but yeah, it's strikingly kind of dark and powerful film, this, actually. It's something that when I first saw it, I was just, yeah, as I say, blown away. I think just first of all, just the way in which, you know, really felt the way these characters kind of get separated and come back into contact throughout the film. That's something there, really emotional and kind of sad moments throughout the film, and how, for example, the brothers get separated, or Latika gets separated from the brothers, or, you know, and just how it kind of evolves throughout their years, and how it's got many tragic aspects as well to different characters. Of course, that around about the half an hour mark is when, you know, this other character Mammon comes into the film, and he's basically this gangster, basically using these kids. It's very dark stuff here, of course, using these kids, you know, to kind of, he basically, you know, entices them in, and of course, he uses, of course, them to beg, to make money, and all sorts of different things going on here. And of course, there is a scene, you know, one of the tragic scenes, of course, is when one of them, you know, individuals, you know, there is a scene there. I'm not going to describe the scene, but we all kind of know what that scene is there, and it's just, you know, really such a shocking scene, you know, but it's just, I think, yes, Danny Boyle, to show this is very bold, you know, and kind of to include this in the film, but, you know, this is the tragic, you know, reality actually, and I think this adds to the kind of the real, you know, emotional points in the film, and how this is kind of a very sincere and honest, that's the thing, honest kind of portrayal of this. And just, I think just this whole narrative and the different encounters, you know, that Jamal, you know, happens upon, you know, in the film, and all these different even side characters, just how memorable they are. That's the thing that really struck me the first time I saw it, and I never forgot the kind of, for example, the face of Mammon. You know, he really is such a scary, you know, disturbing guy, and you know, just the way he's portrayed in the film, and the real yeah, just how kind of how scary and disturbing this is, you know, and how, of course, it's very kind of Shakespearean as well. You know, the rise and fall of different characters. For example, Salim, you know, and the way that he gets revenge, of course, as well. You know, it's got all these different themes in the film, betrayal, you know, honor and stuff. All this is kind of it's within this, and I think that the character of Salim is such a great character. The writing here, the performances, of course, throughout all the different stages, you know, really just on point here. And I think just this point where he does take revenge, and of course he shoots, as we know, this character to get revenge. Wow, you know, it's a real such a kind of you know, complex film. This I think just this whole kind of this arc of Salim is maybe the most, you know, interesting actually, and the most kind of you know, compelling in many regards. But of course, Jamal is such a great character, and his kind of romance, of course, throughout the film. This love story is just also highly compelling. You know, it's something that really it's very sad at times, but in the end, of course, as we know, it is very satisfying, and you know, it does end. You know, it does have a happy ending. But yes, you know, for in other areas, of course, you know, Salim does die. You know, it's very tragic as well. There's the character arc, you know, of Salim, as I say, is very complex. But of course, he goes up and down, and you know, in the end, though, you know, he does redeem himself, and you know, luckily that's so. But you know, in this at the same time, it's kind of very tragic that he does die. But yes, you know, just that is the film. You know, it's very complex. As I say, it's simply told, but it's got a lot of complex characters and themes, and just moments, I think, in general, that just, you know, really there's so much going on within different scenes, you know, up and downs, you know, it's just wow, it's just an experience really. And I think Dev Patel, of course, playing you know, Jamal as, you know, 18-year-old Jamal, kind of thing here. I think he is great in the film. You know, it's just brilliant, and I think, you know, at first, you know, it's very interesting. Basically, yes, you know, as the film goes on, you see more of the flashbacks. It really enhances, you know, the connection between these scenes, you know, going on, you know, in the present here, and basically, you know, with Dev Patel, and then of course you get to know him through, you know, the other stages of his life, and then of course it just enhances, you know, mainly the second half a lot more, and of course by the end of it, once again, I just remember how much I love, you know, the kind of the second half. You know, I think it's so invested in it. I think the scenes with Dev Patel really, you know, get better and better as the film goes on, actually, and by the end of it, it just comes together, you know, pretty much perfectly, actually, to really, you know, move me, you know, just satisfy me as well, and just the journey that we go through, and all these themes that are rolled into this film, and how kind of you know, kind of meaningful this experience is, how spiritual it is, and how warm it is. You know, it's a very warm film. Once again, you know, it has got this harsh moments, of course, and you know, it portrays quite a cold, maybe a cold world, actually. You know, kind of world view at times, and of course, brutality in the film. You know, very extreme cases of violence. You know, of course, and even at the beginning, you know, Jamal, you know, Salim's mother, getting killed there, and you know, it's portraying such a kind of a harsh life, but it is also full of hope, and you know, just this. I think the thing that really gets me is the way it kind of portrays determination, and how these characters just keep going, and you know, it's this rags to riches tale, but it's not just that. It's the fact that, you know, kind of this kind of theme of survival, actually, and very present, of course. For example, 28 Days Later, very differently. But yeah, you know, it's kind of this, once again, this kind of how these characters survive in this kind of, you know, harsh world, and you know, poverty, and you know, crime and stuff. You know, all kind of intertwines here. You know, actually, it really reminds me as well, you know, of kind of City of God, the film, you know, 2002 film. That's a stunning film as well. You know, and it kind of, there's a lot of similarities, actually, you know, between these two films. You know, it kind of reminded me once again, seeing this, how kind of, you know, it does share some you know, kind of themes, and just you know, just the way the film you know, progresses at times with different character arcs is very similar at times to City of God. You know, I'm not going to say which I prefer. You know, another day when I see that film, of course, again and review it. But yes, this film, it does kind of feel like that at times, but of course, in its style, once again, this is definitely a Danny Boyle film. It really feels just once again you've got these trademarks, this kind of gritty feeling, but this, I think particularly the camera angles and stuff, very similar at times to 28 Days Later. Again, you can't really compare it because of the obvious, the way 28 Days Later is shot, but it is very, very. I think the chase scenes, for example, are very. You can compare them definitely to 28 Days Later. I think some of the angles, and stuff, and the close-ups perhaps as well, and just the way the energy to it, the raw, gritty feeling is definitely there, and I think it's a perfect kind of combination here. This raw, energetic kind of, really gritty feeling in the visuals as well, and the editing, to this. So in this film, particularly this great deal of beauty as well. The way it portrays nature in the film. Just these wonderful shots. Throughout India, but again, this kind of raw, gritty feeling as well, and it's kind of the perfect combination. Once again, really, really stunning film, and of course this human story, and how this is just such an emotional film, throughout. And this film was just wonderful in its editing as well, as I've said. Just a real, brilliant structure to the film, and the way this flashbacks, and stuff, and the way it kind of intertwines, and you see, see kind of the way in which, just the questions, you see what questions he's getting next, and of course, seeing how that kind of links in with the story, and how he kind of came upon knowing this question, for example, even though he's come from the slums, and of course, different people, of course, questioning how he would know this, for example, but it's just a really, really wonderful way in which, it's kind of edited, and how it kind of, it shows, these specific, questions, and how he's kind of come upon, knowing the answers, to these questions. Of course, a lot of people kind of say it's a very cheap, maybe quite bad way of telling the story, actually, by using, just this Who Wants to Be a Millionaire kind of show. Some would say that's very bad, very basic way of telling the story, but I do think, on this occasion, it's just brilliant, the way it's done, and how it's executed, just the overall, the way the story is told, visually as well, it's stunning. It's just a beautiful film, and how human it is, and how it's got these tragic moments, but it also shows the beauty of India, and I love, of course, just the way the kind of transitions happen. For example, them becoming. You see that the kind of the phase in which they're on the trains and stuff, and how they kind of the transition to when they grow up a little bit there. The music, use of music as well, just stunning. One of my favourite moments actually in the film, and this got really overall great soundtrack. I feel there's maybe not every song in the film that I love, but it's a couple maybe here and there that I maybe not the biggest fan of, but I think the way it's used is mostly great. Maybe not the. Yeah, maybe I think the song when they're kind of running very near the beginning of the film, that kind of song there, and running through and stuff. I don't know the name of the song, but yeah, that's maybe not the best, and maybe a different song choice there would have even heightened that scene further. But yeah, I think mostly the soundtrack, is great, and I think. The score, though, is the thing, not the use of songs, particularly the score, which is really stunning, and that's why, overall the soundtrack is just so great. I think the score, it's really, really beautiful, wonderful score here, and the way it's used as well, and how kind of, you have this connection emotionally, for example, to the romance. That's something that really heightens the score to the film. Of course, it won Oscar for that as well. Again, I would have personally picked Dark Knight, out of the ones that were kind of, in the kind of the contender here. But yes, I think in itself the score here is just stunning, and yes, just a beautiful film. This it's a really stunning script. These characters are so fleshed out. So much emotion to these characters, and through the relationships as well. That's the thing that really works so well, masterfully, is these relationships. And how these characters go on this journey together, for example, and also when they split up, but when they come back into each other's lives, how it's so meaningful for that. You know, for example, a lot of time has passed at different moments in the film, and these characters haven't, been in contact for maybe a couple of years at a time here, and it's just when they do, of course, once again, meet each other. You know, it's just stunning. It really, really is just so emotional, this film, and just the way it kind of is so inspirational. I feel, it's kind of this rise, rags to riches story, but just I think this kind of portrayal of humanity and courage, really says something about the human spirit, actually, and just the way in which, certainly in the end, as we know, the kind of hope within this, and how it kind of is this response to very, very harsh world, and this hope, in the face of that, is something that really wins me over. In the end, I think just a wonderful film, beautiful ending, and very fun. Let's just say that, a very fun kind of end credit scene. Whether or not it kind of kind of fits the perfectly the rest of the film, but again, it is a credits scene, so I'm not going to kind of give flaws for that. But a lot of people, of course, are not a fan of the ending and stuff, the way they kind of go into that dance. But I do, love the actual scene itself there. Whether or not it's kind of, it feels like the rest of the film. No, it probably doesn't. But it is just great to kind of see, and how the end credits, actually put together as well. Kind of the cast and everything comes up. I think it's great. It's just amazing, actually, and just a film that, again, I can understand how it's not maybe someone's favourite Danny Boyle film. It's certainly not mine. That's Trainspotting, of course. That's by far my favourite. But this film, is really one of his best, I feel, and it's certainly one of his masterpieces. That's for sure. It's just a stunning film, really, in every regard. I think there's maybe a couple of things here and there that, maybe could have been even better. Just a couple of slights, maybe in some of the soundtrack and stuff. But that's about it, really. I think, yes, the ending kind of dance scene doesn't kind of, maybe isn't necessary, considering in the context of the rest of the film. But, and again, it is kind of an end credit scene, as I've said, and kind of, it is something that in itself is so well put together, kind of choreographed, and just it's such a joyous kind of scene that I do love it, and I think it's just great to see. But I can understand how some people would say it doesn't quite fit the rest of the film. I don't really think it does. But then again, because it is kind of an end credit, I don't really think it needs to necessarily. But yes, this film really, from start to finish, is just wonderful in my opinion. I think. I can understand it's not for everyone. It's very, very dark at times, while it is very hopeful and very inspirational. I feel it is very, very dark and very quite graphic at times. For example, again, the scene that I won't get into specifically, but yes, very, very, very dark moments, very harsh and brutal moments in the film. But it just is, I think, just a wonderful film. It's complex, but it is very, very hopeful in the end, and just a beautiful ending that really, it's a satisfying ending in every regard, I feel, and just these characters, how I followed these characters, these macro themes as well, and how it kind of shows, this culture, specifically, I think, just this whole kind of the way in which it's showing poverty and how these characters are surviving in this world, harsh world, as I've said, but also just this kind of fantastical feeling, actually, and the way it's kind of, showing this how Jamal, of course, came upon these scenarios which allowed him to, in the end, answer these questions. It's really quite stunning, actually, and very, yes, it's very out there. It's very fantastical in many regards, but that's one of the reasons why I love the film as well. The kind of dreamlike, fantastical feeling, kind of maybe just satirical as well, feeling that it has. And I think it's just a stunning film. Definitely a masterpiece in my opinion. I love this film. Real emotion, shown here, real beauty, and just a human tale that I love. Every minute of, really. I just think it's a real masterpiece, actually, and it's not my favourite Danny Boyle film, but again, Trainspotting is very, very literally impossible, to kind of top, I feel, and that's always going to be my favourite Danny Boyle film. But yes, this film, one of his masterpieces in my opinion, and it's not quite into my plus tiers. Very, very close, you could say. I don't think it's quite as good as 28 Days Later. I think, that's just, I'll just say that now. It's always been very, very close in many regards, but I think I have to say, if I really need to, really actually deciding this and kind of asking myself, what do I prefer? I think I'll say it now. It's 28 Days Later. I think that just edges it out. I think, and that's definitely, that film is in my plus tiers. This one isn't quite, but it is an absolute masterpiece, and therefore it gets 100%. Absolutely, this is just remarkable film. Just kind of every time I've seen this, it's kind of I've kind of seen more in it, kind of thing. Just in these details, I think, and these characters, and how I really feel this real emotion to the kind of the whole story, the narrative. This is a classic narrative, and the way it's told as well. It's just so investing. It's exciting. The way to kind of use a game show, of course, like Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. To kind of learn more about this narrative. More about this character in particular, and all the different people he's encountered, and just to learn his kind of tale through these. Kind of these questions. It's a really great way to tell a story. Just in the way that this is executed. Again, of course, some people would say the opposite. Some people would say it's very on the nose and very maybe just too kind of simple. But I do like simplicity. Of course, I love that in cinema, and I think the way this is done just so happens to be executed wonderfully. Of course, it could have been something that's very very cheap and gimmicky. I can get that, but on this occasion, I don't think it is. I think Danny Boyle really directed this film wonderfully. Flawless direction really here, and I think just the way he kind of tells the story and how it kind of the structure of the film. I think it's really, really stunning actually, and the way the narrative momentum is just constantly there. It's kind of just always leading to the next scene. You're anticipating, at least I am, the next scene and where this will go, and kind of how he came upon this question. Of course, I don't remember everything in the film every time I see this, so it's great to kind of be like, oh yeah, of course, that's how he kind of found that out, perhaps, and it's just a great excitement in that sense, in terms of just learning about these characters, and just as well, a great use of comedy in the film, in itself as well, and just the whole kind of the way that the scenes with Dev Patel as well escalate, and this escalation within the kind of game show, and even the torture scenes as well. They're always held there and questioned. That's just so kind of thrilling as well, and the kind of way Chamber Box perhaps there, and kind of as we go on in the film, we learn more about his past. We also kind of learn more about what's going on, with that. So it's kind of all these pieces, perhaps going on, of course, at the same time, and just working in perfect harmony, really. As I say, this is just a masterpiece in my opinion. I love this film so much. It really is just a stunning film, full of hope, humanity, and very, very, very dark film. Very, very tragic in many regards. Salim, of course, being the main character here, we talk about who just, his arc, of course, very, very tragic, up and down, but in the end, it's very, very sad, of course, to see, his death, but, it's also a very, very hopeful film, and of course, at least, we do get, these two characters, Latika and, of course, Jamal, ending up together, and, of course, Freida Pinto is great in the film. Dev Patel is so great in this film, and all the different performances here, just stunning. All these characters throughout the different stages. There's not a flaw here in the performances, I don't think. And just, in that sense, it really is just such a well-rounded film. It's a wonderful film. As I say, full of beauty, full of hope. It just is a wonderful rags to riches tale. Stunning film, in my opinion, of course. maybe a couple of things, within the soundtrack and the way it's used. But as I say, it could have been a little bit better. You need to kind of just, maybe a couple of, just one or two instances here where I think, it could have heightened it even more. But as it is, it's a masterpiece, pretty much flawless in my opinion, and it's just among my favourite films, really of the century. Certainly on that list in that sense. But yes, as always, thanks for watching. Tell me your thoughts on this film. It's very interesting to see what people think about this one, and of course it's a bit more divisive perhaps, within his filmography. But yeah, it's a film that, of course, is very, very loved as well, and very kind of, well-regarded film critically, and all these kind of things. And it'd be very interesting to see what you think of the film. And discussions, of course, on Danny Boyle, and yes, just cinema, of course, as always. And yes, I love this film so much. Tell me your thoughts on this film. What do you think of it? And as I say, just any questions, on cinema, as always, any discussions, would be great. And yes, as always, thanks for watching my review.